Happy New Year, everyone! In just the first weeks of 2026, archaeologists have already made discoveries that challenge and inform our understanding of ancient death, warfare, and architecture. These discoveries didn't come from one place or culture, or even one time period. They come from across the globe, and together they remind us that the past isn't finished revealing itself. In Malawi, a highly unusual 9,500-year-old cremation challenges what we thought we knew about the funerary practices of early Africans. Found during routine archaeological work in England, this is not a dragon. It's a Celtic Iron Age war horn, one of the most intimidating instruments ever used in battle.
At first he thought it could be some sort of metal dish, because only a little piece of the shield boss was present, and I decided to go over and help him excavate it. And only after we revealed the bore standard did we realise it was probably something a little bit more special.
And in Italy, a basilica designed by the great Roman architect Vitruvius, once described only in his books, is now finally emerging from the ground. Keep watching for all the dirty details on these finds and why they matter. This isn't a video about lost civilizations or dramatic treasure. It's all about small pieces of evidence that quietly disrupt long-held assumptions. And when put together, they reveal a past that was far more complex, inventive, and human than we often imagine. So join me today on a journey through time, exploring these stories that I've curated just for you, using my years of experience as an archaeologist, including an interview with the team who found the ancient battle trumpet. This video is all archaeology, no pseudoscience, clickbait, or AI here. If it all sounds like it's right up your trench, grab your trowels and let's dig in to the discoveries. We have 8 discoveries to cover today that I will be presenting in chronological order, starting with the one that goes the farthest back in time. Our journey begins 9,500 years ago in a rock shelter at the foot of Mount Hora in northern Malawi. This shelter has been used by humans for more than 21,000 years, including as a burial site 16,000 to 8,000 years ago. And now researchers there think they have found the earliest evidence for intentional cremation in Africa, the oldest in situ adult funerary pyre in the world, and one of only a few associated with hunter-gatherers. While burned human remains have been found in Australia dating as far back as 40,000 years, cremation pyres, which are intentionally built structures of combustible fuel, do not appear in the archaeological record until nearly 30,000 years later. This new evidence comes in the form of 170 bone fragments belonging to a single person that were found in 2 clusters during excavations in 2017 and 18. The fragments were found within a pit of ash, charcoal, and burnt sediment. Radiocarbon dating of the charcoal from amongst the human remains returned dates of between 9,540 to 9,454 years before present. Osteological analysis determined that the fragments came mostly from arm and leg bones, and that the individual was most likely a female between 18 and 60 years old when she died. If that age range sounds like it's pretty big to you, you're not wrong, but doing an analysis of cremated bones, which are in lots of tiny little pieces and you don't have them all, like this, is way, way more difficult than looking at a complete skeleton from a burial. So being able to tell this much is actually quite a lot of information. Cut marks on several of the bones suggest that they were separated at the joints and flesh was removed before the body was burned. The skull is missing and may have been removed prior to the cremation, but there is no evidence to suggest that this was done as a violent act or cannibalistic one. It's more likely that the body parts might have been removed as part of a funerary ritual. The funeral fire achieved over 500 degrees Celsius in heat, as indicated by the different colors of the heated bones, and the repeated deposition of ashes indicates that attendees of the funeral continued to add fuel to the pyre. Stone knapping activity also likely occurred during the pyre formation, and we know this because we found a concentration of points that was either added to or embedded within the burning remains. This suggests that they were intentionally placed, perhaps associated funerary objects. Within a few hundred years of this first funeral, Multiple large fires were relit in the same area, although no further evidence exists for cremations happening at the site. So why is this important? Well, firstly, archaeological evidence for cremation amongst African hunter-gatherers is extremely rare, with no reported cases south of the Sahara Desert. Some burned human remains in Egypt date to around 7,500 years ago, but the first confirmed cremations don't appear until 3,300 years ago, making this discovery now the oldest cremation on the continent. And while this cremation is highly unusual, it contributes to growing evidence of complex social worldviews and ritual activities among tropical African hunter-gatherers that challenges our previously traditional assumptions about them. This video is sponsored by AncientCyprus.com. Cyprus, inhabited over 12,000 years ago in the pre-ceramic Neolithic period, boasts a long and complex archaeological history. AncientCyprus.com is dedicated to fostering interest in Cypriot and Levantine archaeology and supporting archaeology communication. Their work encompasses a diverse array of projects, from developing articles on topics like early Bronze Age pottery to producing 2 billion pixel surface scans of ancient objects and creating extremely high-res 3D models of archaeological ceramics that allow for detailed inspection of surface damage. The organization's goal is to document the entirety of Cypriot and broader Levantine archaeology and material culture. In sponsoring this video, all they want you to do is check out their website, which is linked in the description of this video, so head there after this to learn more about ancient Cyprus. Our next discovery comes from 5,000 years ago on the southern coast of Brazil, where archaeologists have found evidence of ancient groups hunting large baleen whales. For thousands of years, coastal communities around the world have depended on large whales through opportunistic harvesting and active hunting, a practice that, while very controversial today, was integral to their food security, cultural identity, and traditions. The origins of this practice have been heavily debated, and it's most often associated with cultures in the Arctic and subarctic regions dating to around 3,500 to 2,500 years ago. In the southern hemisphere, cetaceans have been used by pre-colonial indigenous groups in Brazil since at least 8,000 years ago, as we know this from bone remains and objects that are found in numerous shell mounds, known as sambaqui, which are found along estuaries, bays, and coastal lagoons. However, the absence of specialized harpoon technology, as well as the lack of hunting marks on the bones, has led to a general perception that whales were not intensively exploited, but rather used opportunistically when stranded. The new analysis looked at a museum collection of hundreds of cetacean bone remains and bone tools from sambaquis in Babatonga Bay. Many of the sites no longer exist, making this collection a unique archive of a history that otherwise would not have been able to reconstruct. They used conventional zooarchaeology techniques and collagen peptide mass fingerprinting to identify the specific species of the bone artifacts and found that they came from southern right whales, humpback whales, blue whales, sei whales, sperm whales, and dolphins, many showing clear-cut marks associated with butchery. They reconstructed the chronology of cetacean exploitation by expanding radiocarbon dating of human and cetacean bone specimens, and finally they compared archaeological and ethnographic literature, which helped them identify that some artifacts recovered from the sambaquis are, in fact, harpoon foreshafts made of whale bone. Kind of grim if you think about it, and they are among the largest documented from archaeological sites in South America. This has led the team to conclude that sambaqui populations possess the technology for hunting large whales and dolphins as early as 5,000 years ago, positioning southern Brazil as one of the earliest centers of large baleen whale exploitation and potentially pushing back the earliest date for whaling by more than 1,000 years. The third find on our list spans the Bronze and Iron Ages of Ireland, between 3,200 and 2,400 years ago. It brings us to County Wicklow and the Brussels-town Ring hillfort, where 600 suspected house platforms have been identified, which makes the site the largest clustered settlement so far identified in prehistoric Ireland and Britain. Brussels-town Ring is one of the largest hillforts in Ireland, with the remains of two widely spaced ramparts encompassing a footprint of 41.19 hectares and spanning two hilltops, which is an exceptionally rare occurrence. Archaeologists have been working to try and determine the number of potential roundhouses at the site. Previous surveys had found 288 potential footprints, but now an airborne survey has put that number above 600, with 98 of the footprints in the fort's inner enclosure and the further 509 between the inner and outer enclosures. This is notable as only a handful of other sites have more than a few dozen roundhouse footprints, and not all of these feature enclosing elements. The previously largest example had between 140 and 150 roundhouses. A series of targeted test trenches further investigated a small sample of the platforms, and all of them produced evidence of prehistoric occupation, including a cobbled floor, a hearth, stake holes, and pit features. Only a few artifacts, lithics, and burnt clay were found, but this is not something that is uncommon for Irish hill forts. Radiocarbon dating showed that the site was primarily occupied between 1210 and 790 BCE. One roundhouse also dated to the early Iron Age between 750 and 400 BCE. A small stream running into a boat-shaped structure was tentatively identified as a cistern, but further excavation is needed to confirm this. If correct, it would be the first of its kind from an Irish hill fort and provide a fascinating insight into ancient settlement planning and infrastructure. Given its exceptional size, density of occupation, and architectural complexity, Brussels Town Ring represents a unique case both within the Baltinglass hill fort cluster that it belongs to and more widely within the Atlantic archipelago. Further work at the site will hopefully bring us even more exciting results. Our fourth discovery this month is 2,300 years old and was found at the Bahir Mound near Islamabad in Pakistan. This mound is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Takshila and represents its earliest settlement phase. In antiquity, Takshila stood at a strategic crossroads linking Central Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East, making it a thriving center of trade, learning, and spiritual exchange, attracting scholars from across Asia to study there. During systemic excavations of the mound, a terracotta figurine depicting a woman mid-dance, adorned with earrings and bangles, her face alive with joy and movement, was unearthed. Measuring 12 by 7 centimeters, it has been preliminarily dated to the 3rd century BCE. Its expressive detail and artistic sophistication stand out as such qualities are rarely preserved so vividly in early terracotta art. Similar figurines found at other sites linked to early Jain communities has led archaeologists to think there is a similar connection here. Jainism is an Indian religion which teaches a path towards spiritual purity and enlightenment through disciplined nonviolence to all living creatures. It began around the 6th century BCE and is often associated with ascetic practices. However, the joyful dancing posture of this figurine challenges our assumptions of early Jain life as being purely austere, suggesting that art, music, and celebration coexisted with this religion in its early days. This find also adds weight to the view that Jainism may have had a more visible presence in the region than previously assumed. A shaped quartz object was also found alongside the figurine, perhaps placed there for a ritual or symbolic purpose. Both objects are currently undergoing detailed analysis and conservation before going on display at the Takshila Museum. Our next discovery is 2,000 years old and brings us to West Norfolk in the UK, where archaeologists excavating in advance of the construction of a housing development have uncovered a hoard of internationally significant Iron Age objects. The objects include parts of a carnix, which is a Celtic battle trumpet, and a battle standard. I caught up with members of the team from Pre-Construct Archaeology who made this amazing discovery. Let's dig in to what they had to say about this once-in-a-lifetime find. Welcome, everybody, to the channel. I think this is the biggest interview that I've had, all of you all in one room. It's great. The team from PCA Archaeology. If you guys want to start off, can you just go one by one, introducing yourselves and your role on the project, please?
So I'm Joe Mason, and I was on the site team.
My name's Peter. I was the manager of the project, set it up, and then helped the team during the time out on site.
I'm Tom Lucking. I'm PCA's metalwork specialist. I'm also a fieldwork project officer, so I went and helped with all of the excavation of the Hoard and the block lift.
I'm Richard. I was also one of the site field archaeologists.
I'm Matt. I'm another field archaeologist on site.
And I'm Joe, and also a field archaeologist on site, yeah.
My name's Isaac Groves, and I was a field archaeologist on the project.
I'm going to just jump right in with my first question for you guys, which is, can you give us a brief background about the site that you were working on where you made this discovery?
Yeah, so we've got this small site in the part of Norfolk. So within about 60 miles of Thetford. It's basically part of the planning system. So we've come along for a client to do their archaeology. A very small site, just 3 house plots. So we're actually digging in the footprints of where the buildings would be built.
The site itself had been pretty quiet overall. There were a few sort of like ditch networks, a couple of miscellaneous pits, and there wasn't really much going on.
What exactly have you found there that's made all the headlines?
My colleague Richard, he detected something on the metal detector. At first he thought it could be some sort of like metal dish, because only a little piece of the shield boss was present. I decided to go over and help him excavate it. And only after we revealed the ball standard did we realise it was probably something a little bit more special.
It's basically a consolidated hoard of late Iron Age metalwork, which consists of the thing that's grabbed the headlines is this carvix, which is this sort of Iron Age like a war trumpet. So there's this brass instrument, which is the most complete example that's been found, and we think it's sort of the most complete single example that's been found. Bits of the second carnix, but also a boar standard, or the head of a boar standard, which is this sort of model of a boar that would have been on a pedestal or on the top of a pole and paraded around. A number of 5 shield bosses of varying forms and designs.
Sounds pretty exciting, and these things aren't found, every day. And when they're found by an archaeologist, obviously it's an extra special occasion because it means that we have the opportunity to excavate and conserve it properly right from the start, from when it's found, which I think is really important to get across.
So one of the things we wanted to stress with this project was why we're really happy, really overjoyed about it. Well, because we had this good feeling about the site, and we knew that there might be some Anglo-Saxon burials nearby. But we really stressed using metal detectors from day one. So in the end, why we're really happy, just as a backdrop to this, is because we undertook the work very well. The find itself is in a feature in the subsoil, and as you know, being an archaeologist, subsoils often get if there's nothing in there, you can take that down to the natural. So these finds would have been tin foil basically in front of a machine bucket if we hadn't have been on the ball from day one.
It's great that I have so many people from the actual field team here today. Do you all want to take a moment to describe how it felt when you found it, or what happened exactly on site that day?
Yeah, I mean, like Pete said, we were just sort of going down spit by spit almost, doing the metal detecting. So when I originally found, the signal deep down, what I thought I'd originally found was a bit of a grave good, maybe some decoration or some jewelry. It wasn't until we sort of started to reel a bit more that we realised it's something a lot larger and a lot more important as well.
Yeah. And how did it feel when you guys realized, like, oh, this is major?
Amazing, yeah. I mean, the whole day, or those 2 days that we were excavating it, was sort of a bit of a blur in my mind, to be honest.
When we realised sort of like the face started to appear and we realised it could be something a bit more special, the feeling you have initially is just sort of like a strangely cold one, because you can't quite believe you found something so amazing.
It sort of got more and more exciting as it went on, because initially you thought there might have been some metalwork pots, and then we took it down slightly and it was like looking a bit like a shield boss. And then you can see from the footage we filmed that was on Digging for Britain that there's that moment where the sort of face of the board starts to appear. And there was a bit of discussion on that. And then he realised, oh, this might be a carnix. And then everyone was like, oh my God, and like crowding over really eager to get involved,
So what was the process of excavating it? You said you found it by metal detecting. So how did you go through the process of finding it, excavating it, and then taking it out of the ground?
We sort of realised that obviously we have this collection of metal objects that you can see sticking out just at the very top of this group. So the first thing we did was obviously try and define what sort of context they're in. So it was about getting down to a level, cleaning all of that and seeing that, and we could sort of see what appeared to be quite an ephemeral just pit. And we made the decision that, well, there's no way we're going to be able to do what you would traditionally do in archaeology, because it's obviously just full of all of these quite fragile objects. So the decision was made of, well, what's more important here is actually getting the hoard out as a consolidated block so it can be dealt with in the lab. We need to create a pedestal with this hoard in, dig everything else around it, all the way down around it to give us some working space, and then just gradually work our way in and tidy it up until we have what we were happy with as a sort of solid block. And then obviously wrap that all up, make sure that it wasn't going to move, and then just try and find just get it lifted onto a board and get it off site.
I can imagine that took quite a team of people to lift out.
Part of the problem with these was obviously you go, well, we need to block lift it, and then you get to the point of, well, now we actually need to lift it and get it onto a board, and it was how do we do that? Like, how do we figure that one out? And because in the end it was 4 of us lifting this. We managed to get it onto a big thick wooden board, but it was then having 4 of us to lift it and sort of gently try and get it across the site without tripping over and get it into the back of a van.
Yeah.
It was very tense, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
was tense.
We're shepherding it from the site to the horse hospital where we took it for its CT scans and x-rays.
Yeah.
We had to take it to that place because it was the only place that had a big enough x-ray machine to get the block in, basically. It was us and almost everybody who wasn't busy already at the horse hospital was crammed into this tiny room just watching the monitors. And apparently it's not super easy to do CT scans or x-rays, especially of non-organic creatures. So the machines they have are built to sort of like capture bits of bone. So we had to go through all these different settings basically till we could find an image that was clear enough. And each image revealed something different at a different depth.
You know, you could kind of start to see like this curving shape coming down, and it's like, oh, we weren't expecting that. Hang on a minute. Like we saw what we thought were the mouthpieces sticking out the edge of the block, and we're kind of like, oh my goodness, like there's an instrument in here. It's mind blowing. I mean, I've been in the job for maybe a month, and so I was very new and very green, and like
Very lucky.
You're very lucky. Yeah, I don't really know how I'm going to top that.
The X-ray was kind of, there's all these ideas going around, and starting to contact experts and seeking advice. Yeah, it was a bit of a weird day, to be honest. And then I remember the drive back in the van, we were all kind of saying, well, where do we go from here? Like, what's better than this? And it wasn't a very relaxing drive. To take it to the X-ray, and I really hope we don't get in a car crash now.
We've touched a bit on the different elements that are in the hoard and the fact that it is obviously quite significant, but do you guys want to delve a little bit more into particularly what makes this so special?
As I said, the standout pieces really are the carnix and the ball standards, and these are just exceptionally rare objects. Prior to this hoard, there were about 21 carnices known from across Europe. Most of those were fragments, individual elements here and there. Ball standards, there was a handful known from Europe. This piece is the first piece found in Britain. Carnices, there'd only been 2 that were known from Britain previously, and they were both sort of antiquarian finds from the 18th and 19th centuries. But it's the fact that these objects sort of represent almost the pinnacle of Iron Age sort of ceremonial and martial equipment. These are things that clearly have an important role on the battlefield by the way that they're being displayed. When the Romans defeat the various Celtic tribes, they show these objects on their carvings as these are the things that we've conquered. The Celtic tribes view these as their sort of most powerful things on the battlefield, and the Romans are saying we're more powerful than that. These objects are rare today because they're rare in the Iron Age. You're not going to have 100 of them lined up on the battlefield. I mean, I just don't think there's that many actually that ever exist, which is why they're so rare today. They're quite exclusive things, quite restricted in who's allowed to use them. They're quite complex things to make. They seem to be only turning up deposited in very specific types of sites. The Romans describe them almost as war horns, but I think they're sort of conflating what the Romans are using their instruments for on the battlefield, which is giving commands, whereas these things are more totemic. They're sort of giving divine power to people and sort of inspiring the Celtic warriors on the battlefield. But they also have probably a very, very ceremonial role off the battlefield, and it's transferring that sort of ceremonial power into warfare. And this hoard itself is very purposely constructed and very purposely placed as well at the time. So they're being very thoughtful about what they're doing. It's not rushed. It's being done with a degree of ceremonial thought behind it.
It's the placement of the shield bosses, really, isn't it? The way that they almost cover the face of the instrument to hide it or whatever their purpose was. Obviously, that's the $60,000 question. We'll never know why they did it that way.
Well, carnix, I believe, Tom, is the mouthpieces are the most interesting part of the carnix, because not many mouthpieces have been found. But this will allow ancient, historians who've got an interest in music they'll be able to reconstruct more accurately what the sound was like.
I saw, of course, headlines are going to headline. So one of my last questions is that a couple of them, I think based on the relative age of these objects and the location roughly where they were found, have made some connections, rather dubious, I believe, between this hoard and the very famous Queen Boudica, whose kingdom was within this area. Is there any actual evidence from the archaeological site to back this up?
No,
Not really.
I mean, insofar as that it's in the territory of the Acadi tribe, there's other stuff going on in the area that might be contemporary with Boudica's time. We've been very careful in our press releases to not directly mention Boudica. This could be in the ground before the Romans set foot into Norfolk. Yeah.
How would you go about determining that for the dating?
This is the big challenge, really, because one is obviously all of the objects in there may have been curated for a long period of time, so they can all be old when they go in the ground. So the age of the objects doesn't necessarily reflect the age at which they were deposited. The shield bosses are the most easily datable thing, or I say this is all relative, the most easily datable things in which we think they're sort of broadly 1st century AD. The carnix and the other bits and the boarhead are a bit trickier to accurately date. Part of the challenge is that we don't seem to have much in the way of organics in there. It's a remarkably clean soil. There's not a lot of charcoal. There don't seem to be any sort of fragments of cloth or anything organic preserved on the objects. And I think that's a reflection of them deliberately just selecting metalwork to go in the ground.
All the material from the micro excavations been kept for a sample, so it will be properly searched through. But Jonathan, who undertook the micro excavation in the museum, he's not found anything that he's seen with his naked eye, but they may find something yet.
This is the benefit to block lifting, though, isn't it? This is why we do it, because you take a wider sample. You're not looking at the objects in isolation. You're looking at everything that appears within that feature that we've block lifted out. And if there were textiles or if there were charcoal that we could carbon date, it would give us that information. So that's we did a really good job of block lifting it, because it could have given us, what we don't know that there is anything in there that can date it. It could give us that. That's why we do it. That's why we lift in blocks.
It's the temptation on site is you want to see it. You want to take it out of the ground and hold it, look at it, but it's definitely worthwhile. Block lifting.
My last question today is, it's been block lifted, it's been excavated in a lab, and I understand it's undergoing conservation work at the moment. What's going to be the next then in the journey of this carnix and this site, really?
It's about to enter what we call the treasure process, which is treasure is a legal definition in Britain. Hopefully, we'll end up in Norwich Castle on permanent display. That seems to be the aim. I know Norwich Castle are very keen to acquire it, but there's a whole load of another analysis that needs to go on. I think we've got lists being formed of metallurgical analysis and things to be looked at, trying to see if there's anything that will help us date the object, how they've been constructed, looking at these smaller details and things that we can do. There'll be a full publication at some point, won't there, that'll come out of this. But I think the longer time is there'll be reconstructions made and played.
I might buy one.
Yeah.
I think you can buy them on eBay.
Yeah.
But buy one. You guys should all be getting gifted them. Really, that should be your bonus. You can make your own little a cry for whenever you come onto a site. The PCA war trumpet. Well, that's all the questions I have today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me. I really appreciate it. And I think the viewers will really love hearing about this exciting discovery straight from the mouths of the people who made it. What an incredible discovery. Hopefully the hoard will be successfully stabilized and acquired for the nation so that it can go on public display in future. Our next discovery is from around the same time as the carnix and battle standard, the 1st century BCE, aka 2000 years ago. It comes from Fano in Italy, where archaeologists have officially confirmed that architectural remains uncovered in the heart of the city belong to the long sought after basilica designed by Marcus Vitruvius Pollio, the Roman architect whose treatise De Architectura became the foundational text of Western architecture. While many ancient structures have been tentatively linked to Vitruvius, we have been looking for his basilica for literally hundreds of years. And this is the first time a building he himself claimed to have designed and built has been confirmed through archaeology. Vitruvius wrote about the building in De Architectura, describing it as a rectangular structure surrounded by a peristyle of columns. The first hint of this find was found in 2023 when construction work on a building renovation revealed a series of impressive Roman walls and marble pavements, suggesting the presence of a high-status public building. However, access to the deeper remains was limited due to modern structures being above them. Now, a new excavation tied to the redevelopment project of the Piazza Andrea Costa has finally provided the missing link. A careful stratigraphic probe revealed the foundations and column bases of a monumental basilica that matches Vitruvius's description with remarkable precision. The structure has a rectangular plan surrounded by a colonnade, with 8 columns along the long sides and 4 along the shorter sides. The archaeological team confirmed this arrangement after unearthing a 5th corner column, which allowed them to accurately fix the orientation and exact footprint of the building. The columns themselves have a diameter of around 5 Roman feet, which is around 147 to 150 centimeters, and an estimated original height of around 15 meters. That's tall. They were attached to pilasters and corner supports, indicating that they were designed to support a second story. This detail aligns with Vitruvius's architectural method, which often combined structural practicality with proportional elegance. Experts have emphasized the near-perfect match to the centimeter between the physical remains and the measurements derived from De Architectura. Excavation work will continue in the coming months to investigate the broader archaeological context and develop strategies for conservation and public display. The basilica's conformation also allows researchers to better map Fano's ancient urban landscape, linking scattered evidence into a coherent picture of the city's public and administrative life under Augustus, Rome's first emperor. Our penultimate discovery this month is 1,300 years old and brings us to the city of Xi'an, capital of the province of Shaanxi in China, where a remarkably well-preserved Tang Dynasty tomb has been found. The tomb belonged to Ma Sanniang, the wife of Dong Shunjian, a Tang Dynasty military officer. Historical documents confirm that she was buried in 698 CE at the height of the Tang Empire. Inside her tomb, 19 burial artifacts were found, including pottery, bronze, iron, and stone items, and a collection of exquisitely crafted gold and silver objects. Many of the precious metal artifacts were personal accessories such as hair ornaments, containers, and decorative vessels that were used by elite women of the Tang court, providing a rare opportunity to study the lifestyle and identity of these upper-class women, who are often overlooked or omitted from the written historical record. Among the most striking finds was a silver jar and a stemmed cup adorned with grapevine motifs, designs influenced by artistic traditions from the Western regions, an area associated with the Silk Road trading network. The intricate engraving and high-level metalworking showcases both technological sophistication and a blend of domestic and foreign artistic styles. The presence of such Western-inspired designs suggests that artisans in China's Central Plains were not only aware of foreign aesthetics, but were actively incorporating them into luxury goods. This fusion reflects the cosmopolitan nature of Tang society, particularly during its peak in the 7th century. This discovery is especially significant because the Tang Dynasty is often regarded as one of the golden ages of Chinese history, and this tomb will give us further insight into Tang funerary customs, social hierarchy, and international engagement. Our final discovery from January 2026 is the rediscovery of a 300-year-old lost missionary site in Texas, USA. The site was initially established in the 1680s by the French explorer René Robert Cavelier as part of France's efforts to colonize the New World. He left the colony to try and find the mouth of the Mississippi River and was killed by his own men. The remaining colonists were later killed or captured by the native Karankawa tribe. Then, Spain eventually settled on the site as a part of its Catholic missionary efforts, renaming it Nuestra Señora del Espiritu Santo, or Our Lady of the Holy Spirit. However, this occupation was also short-lived, and the site was lost when the Spanish left in the mid-1720s. And now, after a decades-long search, it was finally found on a private ranch near Fort St. Louis in Texas. Metal detectors were used to help define the boundary of the site and locate artifacts to be excavated. Artifacts recovered from the preliminary work include brass trade rings, lead shot, and part of a pair of scissors and a small copper kettle handle. Further work is planned, including more extensive excavations, to help give us further insight into this unique snapshot into the Spanish frontier of Texas in the 1720s. That's it for our top discoveries. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this segment, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Now we're going to move on to archaeology in the news and entertainment. And this is going to be a pretty short segment because there's only one story. And it's related to, you guessed it, Tomb Raider. A first image of Sophie Turner dressed as Lara Croft has been released by Prime Video, showcasing a return to the series' classic costume and sunglasses. I think she looks great, and I look forward to seeing her interpretation of this iconic character. Later in the month, Keely Hawes, who voiced Lara in the video games for over a decade, was spied on the filming set of this new series. It's been speculated that she might have a cameo role as Lara's mother, Lady Amelia Croft, which I think would be a really great Easter egg for gaming fans, and we'll just have to wait, watch, and see who she plays. All right, everyone. Time to pack up our finds and holster our trowels. That's everything for this month. Did you like this video? Is there anything important that I missed? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video or subscribe before you leave. If you're feeling extra generous, you can give me a super thanks or a Ko-fi donation, and I also have an Amazon storefront with the contents of my bookshelf, including the Lego sets, and a Redbubble merch shop whose designs are all archaeology themed, and I've made them all myself. Everything is linked in the video description. I hope that you come away from this video knowing that, despite what crazy nonsense the algorithm might be feeding you, real archaeology is alive, well, and working hard every day to broaden and expand what we know about the past. Every watch, like, subscribe, and click helps my channel connect you directly to the source of exciting archaeological news and shows the algorithm that people are actually interested in real archaeology. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.